And welcome back to This Day. I want to welcome to the program from the El Toro Water District Vice President Mike Gaskins. Six years now serving on as a board member there.
And I've loved every minute of it. It's been a great retirement thing to do to keep my brain juiced up and keep involved.
Did you ever imagine you'd ever know this much about water and how it works and how it functions and the quality?
Probably, because my degree is marine biology.
Oh, there you go.
And science is my thing, you know, and I actually worked in a laboratory for over 7 years doing this kind of testing. So I have a lot of knowledge about this, but the more global picture I now get interacting with other districts and other organizations. And
their challenges and their things that we do. One of the challenges we have is where our water supply comes from. We don't have any groundwater sources in this area, right? Correct. What is the geology behind that? Is just the kind of the clay and the way the water?
Draw.
Yeah.
All the northern county are within the Santa Ana River Basin gravels, you know, which water can percolate down through. We have siltstone, more consolidated geology, and we simply don't have spongy dirt under us that can absorb water.
Okay, that's just the luck of the draw.
Right, and it's sometimes talked as the north and south as the haves and haves not.
And so our two water supplies come from the Colorado River and the State Water Project, basically?
Most of it, yeah. And some of it takes a little detour and goes through a more local treatment plant, the Baker treatment plant. But still, that's where our water comes from. We don't pump anything in our district.
So talk to us about the water quality and how you guys basically come down to the report that got recently mailed out in June 24. What does it tell us about the water quality? We're still doing well?
Well, yeah. Here's the report
that
we sent out to everybody, all the residents, if you're not even a customer. And if you went through this, it confused you. Most of you, I know that there are people here in the village that have no problem with this. You know, I've talked to you. I know you're out there. But all these numbers, most of them are generated by the Metropolitan Water District as the water comes into the distribution system. And so all of this is here, but then more on the local basis, we have to continue to assure that all the standards are met. And the standards of water are defined in this book, which I brought along to share with you.
That's an oldie. That's an oldie from what, from the 90s?
1992. And the reason, there's a couple of more recent editions, but this is the one our lab had.
But it's a great example of the standards that go into it and all of the things, right? Now, this is all on the web, I imagine, now.
It's on the web now, so this is not as impressive maybe as it was, but the information is. And if you're going to test for chlorine, the way you do it is in here.
Right.
If you're going to test for any other parameter, bacteria or a particular type of bacteria,
it's in lead, here. Whatever it might be.
Lead, copper, everything. It's in here. This is the Bible, so to speak.
That's the how-to make sure your water's good book.
Right. And you need somebody who has a background. Your average person, even if you took high school chemistry, probably can't do this. It's beyond them. But the lab staff, we have 2 people in our lab. They are state certified, and they have to recertify and take to continuing education units. And they follow this to a T for the tests that we do.
And there's thousands upon thousands of tests every year that are being done, right?
Right. We have, within our district, we have 26 dedicated sampling spots, which are in metallic cans. And then if there was a problem at one of those, based on data that we got, we'd have to go back and resample 2 connections up, 2 connections down, run it, and then confirm or, you know, talk about it being anomalous. And so you get up to, we have a lot of, over 90 collecting sites.
Now you can, all sorts of things can happen, right? In terms of like, oh, there's a problem here. Oh, maybe there's a pipe. Something's going wrong with the pipe, or somehow something got contaminated along the way, and that's how you narrow it down for all the little testing sites.
Right. You isolate where the point source of the contamination might be. The water flows in to our district. Most of it comes into our R6 reservoir and is distributed from there. We now have another feed that comes in off Moulton. There's a water tank if I can get my geography, it's probably right there. And we've now been able to get water from the water supply and put it there, because the back corner of our district, in the maps on the wall, has always been low in chlorine because the water stays in there for so long. There's little through flow, and so it tends to stagnate. And we used to waste water, flush it in order to keep the chlorine residual up high enough to protect the water for bacteria.
Okay.
And during my term, we tapped into another pipeline that comes down Moulton Parkway, and now we have better water coming in. It works out well for everybody.
Terrific. Now, are these bottles here? These that what you pick up the samples in from the multi-sample places? You fill those and then do the tests.
In particular, these are bacteria sample bottles. They are sealed. They're sterile. They have a chemical in here that removes chlorine, because we put chlorine in the water to kill bacteria. And if we're testing for bacteria, we don't want dead ones. Right? And so they'll take a sample, 100 milliliters. It comes back to the lab. The lab tech will subsample it in smaller and smaller pieces. And depending on, after that, they put it in a different thing in an incubator at body temperature. That's where you want the bacteria that you're looking for to grow. And depending on the number of cells in the sampling device that turn yellow under black light, it's kind of a hootah. Used to be done on Petri dishes that you see in the labs with the bacteria food on them and stuff like that. But this is a very short, brief, we get an answer back in 24 hours.
Wow, okay.
The old rate, probably the one that's in here. I didn't really look, I should have. 72 hours. And so then we would have told you, well, you shouldn't have drank the water.
You shouldn't have been drinking that for the last 72 hours. Darn it all.
Darn it. This is a 24-hour test, and it's industry standard now. Are these nice problem sample bottles? They take other samples than other just bacteria. We sample for chlorine, fluorine, nitrite, what are called trihalomethanes, which are a disinfection byproduct. But anyhow, the water is tested every week at 26 of these sites for all of these parameters, and they are not necessarily represented completely in here.
Right.
But we turn them out.
And how do we know the testers are testing right? They get tested as well throughout the year? They get kind of recertified as they go?
It's a state environmental lab, certified environmental lab. And periodically, about once a year, they send out samples, unknowns. We get a pop quiz.
Okay.
And the lab staff has to test the samples that are given by the state, and their answers have to be within a certain range. And it's a pass-fail. You know, you're either within range or you're not. And I used to do these when I worked in the lab, do the ELAP testing. I always was frustrated because I'd really like to see how close I was to the intended.
They don't give you that. Just pass, no pass.
Pass, no pass. And so, but no, it's carefully regulated, carefully monitored. The reality is most errors in these, even not just our district, but others, are reporting. Somebody put a decimal place in the wrong place. You know, and so that can sometimes be a violation.
Now, the way you guys monitor the water, the way everything goes, it seems as though you guys are totally on top of it in terms of that. Can you in recent memory recall anything that's gone wrong with the water?
Not within my recent memory.
Yeah.
Dennis Cafferty, who's our general manager, has a little more than 35 years here. So his institutional knowledge is impeccable. They have had a few positive bacteria, but most of them probably have been sampling errors rather than, because when you're taking the sample, I mean, if you touch, you know,
right, any little
and then
contamination.
You touch that and this is sensitive enough, the answers that come out of this, and I don't know if it's in here, but the answer for bacteria usually is less than 2. It's never 0, because we sample half of this, right? And so if we don't have a positive, we can say that there's less than 2 bacteria in here. Because if there were 2, we'd have gotten one in both sides, in both halves. But because we didn't get one, it must be less than 2.
Right.
And this is sensitive enough. 1 bacteria in this, and if you've played with microscopes before, you can barely see a bacteria under your basic microscope. You have to get into really sophisticated stuff to actually see a bacteria. And you can't see viruses at all.
Right. So in terms of how you keep the quality so good, and I know there's a very proactive approach to maintenance and replacement and keeping things up to date. And is that one of the reasons why the water, stays so consistently well and the delivery is still good?
Yeah, we have a complete program of exercising the valves, because I don't know how long it's been since you turned off the water stop behind your sink, or whether it will even turn. But we exercise the valves, because if you need to be able to shut off something, you want it to work.
Right, you don't want those things to be locked up because they haven't been touched in 20 years.
Right, and you don't want to slam it shut, because then you get what's called a water hammer, and it shakes the whole system and can break and have leaks. So I mean, it's the people that work. We have around 60 total employees, and they're all really good at what they do. We have somewhat of an advantage because our general manager teaches at Rancho Santiago, and he teaches water science. So when he gets a really good student, he says, hey, I've got a deal for you.
Yeah, shoot him your way.
First shot at recruiting.
We'll keep those new generations coming over at the El Toro Water District. Mike Gaskins, thank you so much for joining us today and getting us updated on what's going on over at the district.
Well, it's a pleasure again, and the customers can call anytime, and we'd be glad to work with you.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.